Hey guys, it's Noel and this is Wheezy Reviews, and today I'm going to take a look at another of the headphones that I picked up on Black Friday. These are the Sennheiser HD 599 SE. Now the SE versions are the special edition black and silver colorway of the HD 599, which is exclusive to Amazon, I believe. And spoiler alert, I think these might have been the best deal during Black Friday. So let's just get into it. So the Sennheiser HD 500 series of headphones are Sennheiser's high-end consumer or entry-level audiophile range of headphones. And the HD 599 is the top of the HD 500 range. So let's just quickly talk about the specs then. These are an open-back circumaural headphone with a 38mm, 50 ohms and 106 dB SPL sensitivity, dynamic driver, and they weigh 250 grams. They RRP for around about £180 in the UK, although they can routinely be found for somewhere between 150 and 180, and they quite often go on sale for as low as £90, which is what I paid for these during the Black Friday sales on Amazon. I think they were going for about $100 at the time as well. So the version I have here is the 599 SE, which is in this black and silver colorway. This is the Amazon exclusive version of the HD 599. Now, the original version has a sort of ivory and brown colorway, which is certainly a love it or hate it affair. And the HD 599 SE's all black design is sure to be a winner, I think, for most people. So the build of the 599 is almost entirely plastic. Now, this is somewhat of a contentious issue for some people. Many people are worried that the all plastic construction would make them fragile, and some people feel that this plastic build is quite toy-like, and frankly, I think those concerns are unwarranted. The 599, in fact, the entire 500 series headphones are incredibly well-built and durable headphones. They're really tough, really durable, really flexible. I think you'd have to try really, really hard to break a 500 series headphone. So I think that this instant dismissal of the HD 500 series headphones for being plastic is rather short-sighted and somewhat elitist. This is far from a toy-like headphone. Its tough plastic construction and leatherette headband has this really rather quality feel to it. Now, speaking of the headband, this is really comfortable. It has this nice deep padding on the inside, and combined with the low weight of 250 grams, I find that I never get any discomfort from this headband at all. Now, the headband adjuster has plenty of range, like so, and they should be able to stretch to fit pretty much any size head. The ear cups have a small amount of vertical movement as well as some lateral movement like this, and combined with the very, very flexible chassis, they should be able to fit to any head size or shape with ease. The velour ear pads are not memory foam or anything, however they are rather soft, if not especially deep. Now, I do prefer the memory foam ear pads from the HD 598 closebacks and the 569. However, these are a close second. I find that these ear cups do have plenty of room for your ears. They're nice and deep. And something to note is that these drivers on the inside are angled towards your ears. Clamping force is also really quite light. Even as a glasses wearer myself, I don't find that I get any discomfort from the clamping force with these whatsoever. In fact, I'd go as far to say that these might be the single most comfortable pair of headphones I have ever worn, bar none. Perhaps even more comfortable than my old HD 558s, which I think the clamping force is, even as old as they are, is a little bit higher than these 599s. Yeah. And make no mistake, this 558 is an incredibly comfortable headphone. So the HD 599 comes with two different cables. So you have one 3-meter straight cable that for some unexplainable reason terminates in a 6.35mm jack plug. And it's also supplied with a 6.35mm female to a 3.5mm male adapter. Now, Sennheiser have been supplying this cable with the HD 500 series headphones for many years. And I really wish that they would just stop right now. For one, I hate with a passion a 6.35mm to 3.5mm adapter. They're far too bulky, they have far too much leverage over your 3.5mm plug. Now, I think Sennheiser really need to switch to using a 3.5mm plug with a screw-on 1/4" adapter. Now, thankfully, this cable is nice and soft and flexible, so I've got no complaints about that. There's no silly, stiff, microphonic braiding here. Now, they also supply a 1.2 meter straight cable, which does have a 3.5mm TRS at the end. So that does go some way to redeeming the 3 meter straight cable with the 1/4" plug. However, what I'd really like to see is Sennheiser embracing a coiled cable as a third option. I do actually use the coiled cable from the Audio-Technica's. This one has the same twist to lock connector on it. There we go. The Audio-Technica one is entirely compatible with the Sennheiser twist to lock. I know that a lot of people don't like coiled cables, but I find the 3 meter cable too long, the 1.2 meter cable too short. So having a coiled cable and also switching to using 3.5mm with a screw-on 1/4" adapter just makes much more sense. I mean, I also think that considering the RRP of these headphones is £180, that including that third cable isn't really too much to ask. So with that little gripe about the cables out of the way, let's talk about how easy they are to drive then. So at 50 ohms and 106 dB SPL, they are actually reasonably easy to drive. They're pretty efficient. So I think the source is not going to be that important with these, not too much of a big deal. You should be able to drive them off of pretty much anything. Moving on to sound then, I think that the HD599 is a rather refined headphone for what would be considered a lower tier mid-fi headphone. So the overall sound signature and timbre is very typically Sennheiser, very much the Sennheiser house sound. If you know what that is, then you know what to expect from these. In fact, it's really not too dissimilar to the HD600 and 650. Now, unlike the HD600 and 650, these actually have a decent soundstage and imaging. It's really excellent on these. They sound impressively open and reasonably wide. They're certainly one of the better headphones out there when it comes to soundstage. Imaging is really rather decent. Now, unlike the 3-blob effect that you get with the HD650 and 600, you do get a fair bit more in the corners with these. And it's for this reason that I think that the HD599 make absolutely excellent gaming headphones, especially for competitive gamers. Now let's go into a little bit more detail, because I've been back-to-back testing these with the HD6XX, and frankly, I'm blown away by just how good the 599 sounds. Now, bass is what I would call a lean, neutral bass, very similar to the HD650, but perhaps a bit stronger and a bit warmer. Now, I do find that kick drums have a little bit more energy on the 599 than on the 650, for example. I would prefer to see a better low or sub-bass performance than this, but really that's only because the sub-bass rolls off so much on these, very similarly to the HD650. That's not to say that the bass isn't quite present and powerful and articulate where it's needed. There is certainly a decent amount of clarity and detail in the bass, but this isn't a bass headphone. Now, I don't find that to be too much of an issue for stuff like rock and pop and blues and jazz and all that kind of stuff. However, for electronic dance music and hip-hop, whilst I do find these quite enjoyable, they are a little bit bass light for these genres. They do quite lack that slam and thump of a headphone with full extension. I suppose that's about par for the course for a dynamic driver open back headphone. However, if you are looking for a more bassy open back dynamic headphone, then the X2HR is probably a better choice. As much as I criticize that headphone as an all-round headphone, it certainly is a bit stronger in the low bass, or I would probably go looking for a closed-back headphone instead. Now, mids are fairly neutral up to about 1 kHz. They have a very similar shape to the 650 and the 600. However, they've got a little bit more energy in the low mids and a little bit less in the upper mids. This does give snares a little bit more energy on the 599 than on the 650, although vocals are not quite its forwards, but they don't sound recessed. They have this rather sweet and smooth quality to them. In fact, smooth, I would say, is probably the best way to describe these headphones as a whole. They're incredibly smooth. Now, treble is respectfully restrained, but decently detailed. They have a slight bright tilt versus the HD650. They're probably a little bit closer to the HD600. Now, sure, detail retrieval isn't quite as good as on the 650, but I only really noticed that when A-Bing between these two headphones. In fact, if I didn't have this 6XX here for direct comparison, I would be absolutely blown away by these. well, even more so than I already am. Now, whilst they are a touch brighter than the HD650, this is bright done right. This is not at all piercing. There's no unwanted harshness. Like I said, they really are quite smooth. Now, I'm not going to go into huge detail on test tracks because pretty much every track that I tried, I have a very, very similar conclusion. So let's talk about Talk by a Perfect Circle. Now, both headphones have a remarkably similar overall presentation, I think. Bass is a little stronger on the 599, a touch warmer. The kick and snare a little bit more forwards. The vocals a bit more smooth and sweet versus the 650, if not quite as forwards as the 650. Now, even when hitting the screaming guitar section at 3 minutes and 10 seconds, the 599 is not overly bright. In fact, it sounds just right. I can say very similar things about Polaris by Deadmau5. There's a bit more energy in the bass. They're a bit warmer. The kick has a little bit more energy. In fact, it has quite a bit more punch on the 599 than the 650. Now, the 599 are a tad brighter for the synth leads, but they're not harsh. They sound really nice and smooth. Overall, though, they do have a very, very similar sound signature, and that's to be expected. So let's talk about value and alternatives then. I paid £90 for these whilst they were on sale, and for that price, I think that they are probably untouchable. Alternatives in this price range are probably a used HD 558 or 598, both can be had for fairly cheap. Now, on the new market, you're looking at the DT990, the AD500X, although I haven't reviewed either of those, so I can't comment on that. There's also the X2HR when that goes on sale, which whilst it is a much less refined headphone with a grainy and peaky treble, it does at least have a decent bass performance. But I think for £90, there isn't much, if anything, in my opinion, that comes close to the HD 599. But we need to talk about the normal retail price of these. Now, bear in mind the RRP of these is £180. They can usually be found for somewhere between £150 and £180, and that puts them in the same territory as the 58X, the K712 Pro, the fantastic DT880, the 8700X, not too far off of the price of the HD6XX, which, as I write this, is going in for around $195. They're frankly an astounding deal. Now, I can't speak for the suitability of all these options, but it's fair to say that that is a very, very competitive price point. So your decision may hinge on whether or not you own a headphone amp, as having a decent source is certainly going to rule out several of those options. So is the $599 worth it? For the sale price of £90 or $100, I think these are an absolute no-brainer, especially if you're a gamer and you value superior soundstage and imaging. For the price of £90, I think these are simply in a league of their own. However, for the rather competitive price point of the usual retail, £150 to £180, I think there's a fair few other options out there to consider, and I would urge a lot more research before taking the plunge on any headphone in that price range. So in conclusion then, the Sennheiser HD 599 and 599 SE are a headphone that with some patience can be had for an incredible price that puts it in a league of its own. Now, the overall presentation of these headphones is somewhat of a mix between the HD 600 and 650, albeit with a little, almost unnoticeably less detail, a slightly brighter but also slightly more bassy and slightly warmer sound signature, and a significantly increased soundstage and imaging. There's a heck of a lot to like about the HD 599. I think they're an incredibly well-balanced and well-rounded headphone. And I really think that any upgrade beyond the 599 and you're already into the realms of diminishing returns. Make no mistake, this headphone is fantastic. So that's going to be it then. If you found this review interesting and informative, then don't forget to leave a like and perhaps consider subscribing by hitting that red button down there. I'm going to have a lot more content like this coming out soon, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, have a good one.